The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly around the Kethmori warship as it drifted silently toward the small blue planet. Inside the massive vessel, Commander Veltok stood before a holographic display showing the world below. His four yellow eyes studied the swirling clouds and green countenance with the patience of a predator who had waited centuries for the perfect hunt. "Look at them," Veltak whispered to his second in command, his voice carrying the clicking sounds of his species. "So many little creatures crawling across their world like insects. They have no idea what is coming." The lieutenant beside him shifted his weight, his armored exoskeleton making soft scraping sounds against the metal floor. "Commander, our scans show they barely have the technology to leave their own atmosphere. This should be easy prey." Veltak's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his kind. The Kethmori had been hunting other species for over 2,000 years. They had perfected the art of capturing sentient beings from across the galaxy, bringing them back to their homeworld for the sacred hunts that defined their entire civilization. Each species presented different challenges, different flavors, of fear and desperation that made the hunt worthwhile. The blue planet below held over 7 billion specimens. It would be the greatest harvest in Kethmori history. "Begin the collection," Veltok ordered, his claws tapping against the command console. "Start with the remote areas. Need to test their reactions before the main harvest." Across the ship, dozens of smaller hunting vessels powered up their engines. Each craft was designed for one purpose: to capture living prey without damaging them. Kethmori had learned long ago that wounded specimens did not provide good sport in the arenas. The first ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their dark hulls invisible against the night sky. They moved with the silence of experienced predators, heading toward areas where humans lived in small groups, far from the major cities where their disappearance might be noticed too quickly. In the mountains of Korea, Dr. Kim Hanna knelt beside a small stream, carefully filling glass bottles with water samples. She had been studying the effects of climate change on mountain ecosystems for 3 years, and this remote location provided perfect conditions for her research. The morning air was crisp and clean, filled with the sounds of birds and flowing water. She never heard the ship approaching. The sky above her suddenly grew dark, as if a massive cloud had blocked out the sun. Hannah looked up and saw something that made her mind struggle to process what she was seeing. A sleek black vessel hovered 30 meters above her, its surface reflecting the morning light like polished obsidian. Strange symbols glowed along its sides in colors that seemed to shift and change as she watched, before she could move, before she could even think about running. Energy nets fell from the ship like glowing spiderwebs. The moment they touched her skin, every muscle in her body locked in place. She could still see and hear, but her body would not obey her commands. The paralysis was complete and terrifying. Through the trees, she could hear shouting and the sound of weapons firing. The small military outpost that protected her research station was under attack. Lieutenant Park Jinu had been checking the perimeter when the first shots rang out. He spun around to see his fellow soldiers falling to the ground, their bodies wrapped in the same glowing nets that had appeared from nowhere. The young officer raised his rifle and fired at the dark shapes moving between the trees. But his bullets seemed to bounce off their armor without effect. "What are these things?" He shouted into his radio, but only static came back. Whatever was attacking them had cut off all communication. You watched in horror as his men were loaded into floating containers that had emerged from the strange ships. They were being collected like specimens, their bodies paralyzed, but their eyes still moving, still aware of what was happening to them. When the net fell over him, Gino's last conscious thought was not of fear, but of anger. These creatures had made a mistake. They thought humans were helpless prey, but they had never faced a species that refused to give up without a fight. The Kethmori hunters worked efficiently, loading their prizes into the cargo holds of their ships. Each human was placed in a stasis pod that would keep them alive and healthy during the journey back to the homeworld. The paralysis would wear off in a few hours, but by then they would be millions of miles from Earth. Commander Veltak watched, the collection process with satisfaction. These humans had shown more resistance than most species during capture. Several of his hunters bore fresh wounds from the fierce struggle the specimens had put up before being subdued. This was promising. The best hunts came from prey that fought back. "Excellent work," he told his hunting teams as they returned to the main ship. "These specimens show real spirit. The arena crowds will love them." As the ships lifted off from Earth's surface, carrying their cargo of captured humans into the darkness of space, Veltok began planning the next phase of the harvest. Soon, thousands of ships would descend on the blue planet, and the real collection would begin. The hunt for humanity had started, but the Kethmori had no idea they were about to discover what happened when predators encountered prey that could hunt them back. The artificial moon hung in space like a twisted playground designed by nightmares. Its surface had been carved and shaped into different worlds, each section mimicking the home environments of various species that the Kethmori had hunted over the centuries. Dense jungles bordered frozen wastelands, while burning deserts met. Shallow seas filled with strange creatures. Dr. Kim Hanna woke up in what looked like a thick forest, but something felt wrong about the trees and plants around her. The leaves were too perfect, the soil too carefully arranged. Everything had been built to look natural while hiding deadly surprises for anyone foolish enough to think they were safe. Around her neck, a heavy metal collar beeped softly every few seconds. She touched it carefully and felt the smooth surface that would tell their hunters exactly where she was at all times. 30 other humans stood nearby, all wearing the same collars, all looking around with the same mixture of fear and confusion. "Listen carefully." A cold, mechanical voice spoke from speakers hidden in the artificial trees. The words came out in broken English, as if the machine had learned the language but never understood how humans actually spoke. "You have 72 hours to survive. Provide good sport for the hunters. If you fail to entertain them, you will be killed immediately." Lieutenant Park Jinu stood among the group, his soldiers' eyes already studying the forest around them. While the other humans whispered nervously, or stood frozen in terror, he was looking for escape routes, checking for weapons, and thinking about how to turn this death trap into a battlefield. "We need to move," he said quietly to the group. "Standing here makes us easy targets." But Dr. Hanna held up her hand. "Wait, I've been watching our captors for days. Their technology is advanced, but it has weaknesses. Their sensors work by detecting heat and movement, but they have trouble seeing through certain materials." She pointed to the mud by a small stream running through the forest. "If we cover ourselves with this, we can hide our body heat. And look at how their equipment is designed." She gestured toward a small device that one of the aliens had dropped during their capture. "Everything is built for hunting prey that runs away. They don't expect us to fight back." Park Jinu nodded slowly. His military training had taught him to study his enemies before engaging them. "You're right. Form groups of 3 people each. We'll set up ambush points and make them come to us instead of running around like scared animals." The humans spread out through the forest, working together in a way that the Kethmori had never seen from their prey before. Most species that found themselves in the hunting preserve either ran in panic or tried to hide until the 72 hours were up. The humans were doing something completely different. They were preparing for war. Dr. Hanna used her scientific knowledge to study the alien plants and animals in the preserve. She discovered which ones were poisonous and which could be used to make crude weapons. She showed the others how to sharpen sticks and stones into deadly points, and how to weave strong ropes from the artificial vines. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Park Jinu organized the humans into military units. He taught them how to move silently through the forest, how to communicate with hand signals, and how to set up traps that would kill their hunters instead of just slowing them down. When the Kethmori hunting party entered the preserve, expected to find terrified prey running in all directions. Instead, they found a forest that had been turned into a killing field by creatures they had thought were helpless. The first hunter to die was named Kreshtal. He was young for his species, eager to prove himself by bringing down one of the new specimens. He followed what he thought was a single human through the trees, not realizing that he was being led into a carefully prepared trap. The ground beneath his feet suddenly gave way. He fell into a deep pit filled with sharpened stakes. Wooden spears, arranged with military precision, pierced his exoskeleton and ended his life before he could even cry out for help. "Impossible," growled Huntmaster Calthic when he heard the news. "Prey doesn't hunt back. Prey doesn't set traps. Prey runs away and tries to hide." But the humans were not running. They moved through the forest in coordinated groups, using tactics that the Kethmori had never encountered before. One team would reveal themselves to attract the hunter's attention, while another team would circle around and attack from behind. Dr. Hannah had been studying the aliens' biology during their captivity, and she had discovered something important. The Kethmori looked frightening with their armored shells and multiple eyes, but they had weak points just like any other creature. The joints where their armor plates met were soft and vulnerable. Lieutenant Park Jinu took this knowledge and turned it into deadly tactics. He taught the other humans exactly where to strike with their improvised weapons to cause maximum damage. The aliens' advanced technology meant nothing when a sharpened stick found the gap in their armor. By the end of the first day, 8 Kethmori hunters were dead, and 15 more were wounded. The humans had lost people too, but their fierce resistance had shaken the confidence of their captors. "These specimens are different," Huntmaster Calthic reported to his superiors. "They adapt faster than any prey we have ever encountered." The second day brought new horrors for the Kethmori hunting party. The humans had learned to mimic the clicking sounds that the aliens used to communicate, and they used captured equipment to send false signals that led the hunters into ambushes. Park Jinu stood over the body of another fallen Kethmori, holding the alien's energy weapon in his hands. "We're not prey," he said grimly to his fellow humans. "We're predators who were just sleeping." The hunt was becoming something the Kethmori had never experienced before. For the first time in their species' history, they were the ones being hunted. The message arrived at 3 in the morning, appearing on communication systems that should have been impossible for any human technology to access. General Lee Minho was pulled from his sleep by urgent phone calls from intelligence officers who could barely believe what they were seeing. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," his aide said, handing him a tablet with shaking hands. "Da. Signal is coming from outside our solar system, but it's in Korean." Lee read the message 3 times before the words truly sank in. Dr. Kim Hannah, the scientist who had disappeared from her research station 6 months ago, was alive. But she was not on Earth. She was somewhere in deep space, captured by alien hunters who saw humans as nothing more than prey animals. "This is impossible," Lee muttered. But even as he spoke, he knew it was real. The technical data attached to the message was far beyond anything humans had ever developed. The mathematical formulas and engineering specifications were written in symbols that no human mind could have created. Within hours, every major government on Earth had received copies of the transmission. Military leaders, scientists, and intelligence experts gathered in emergency meetings trying to understand what they were facing. The world had always wondered if alien life existed, but no one had imagined first contact would come as a warning. About an invasion, Colonel Cho Min-ji, one of South Korea's top weapons engineers, found herself leading a team of international experts tasked with analyzing the alien technology. She had spent her career developing advanced military systems, but the data from Dr. Hannah's transmission made human weapons look like stone tools. "Their energy shields can deflect our most powerful missiles," she reported to the hastily formed Earth Defense Council. "Their ships can travel faster than light, and their weapons can destroy entire cities in seconds." But there's something interesting in this data. They're not designed for military combat. The technical specifications revealed that the Kethmori ships were built for hunting, not warfare. Their weapons were designed to capture prey alive, not to destroy enemy forces. Their shields were strong against primitive weapons, but they had never been tested against coordinated military attacks. "They're hunters, not soldiers," General Lee said during a strategy meeting with military leaders from around the world. "Are used to prey that runs away or hides. They've never faced an enemy that fights back as a unified force." The behavioral analysis that Dr. Hannah had included in her message was even more revealing. The Kethmori were individual hunters who competed with each other for status and glory. They had never developed the kind of military tactics that human armies had been perfecting for thousands of years. They see war as a sport, Lee explained to his officers. Each hunter wants to be the one who makes the kill. They don't coordinate their attacks or support each other in battle. If we can force them to fight as a group instead of individuals, we might have a chance. Earth's military forces began the most rapid technological development in human history. Scientists worked around the clock to reverse engineer the alien technology, creating hybrid weapons that combined human innovation with Kethmori principles. Engineers developed electromagnetic pulse weapons specifically designed to disable alien shields and propulsion systems. The work was dangerous and often deadly. Several research facilities were destroyed by experimental weapons that overloaded, and dozens of scientists lost their lives trying to understand technology that was centuries ahead of human development. But gradually, humanity began to close the technological gap. Colonel Cho Minji led the development of what became known as the Hunter-Killer missile system. Using the technical data from Dr. Hannah's transmission, her team created weapons that could penetrate Kethmori shields and disable their ships without destroying them completely. The goal was not just to defeat the aliens, but to capture their technology for humanity's use. "We're not just defending Earth," she explained to her engineering team. "We're preparing to take the fight to them. If we can capture their ships and learn their technology, we can make sure they never threaten any other species again." The preparations took on desperate urgency when Earth's deep space monitoring systems detected the first signs of the approaching Kethmori fleet. Hundreds of ships were moving toward Earth, their energy signatures unlike anything human sensors had ever recorded. The aliens were approaching with the confidence of predators who had never faced serious resistance. General Lee stood before the assembled commanders of humanity's first interstellar navy. The fleet was a collection of hastily converted military vessels, cargo ships, and even modified civilian craft. Each ship had been equipped with reverse-engineered alien technology and crewed by volunteers who knew they might not survive the coming battle. 6 months ago, we thought we were alone in the universe, Lee addressed his officers. Today, we know that we're not alone, and that there are creatures out there who see us as nothing more than animals to be hunted. They think we're helpless, prey, but they're about to learn what happens when you threaten humanity. The general looked out at the fleet of ships that represented Earth's only hope for survival. "They came to hunt us," he said, his voice carrying across the communication systems of every vessel. "They're about to discover that humans are not prey. We're predators, and we're about to show them what real hunters can do." The battle for Earth was about to begin. Humanity was ready to fight back. The massive Kethmori fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a swarm of metal predators, their ships gleaming in the light of Earth's sun. Commander Veltok stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger on his screens. He had led successful hunts on dozens of worlds, and this one would be no different. The humans were primitive, barely capable of spaceflight, and completely unprepared for what was coming. "Begin the harvest," he ordered his fleet commanders. "Standard hunting formation. Remember, we want them alive for the arenas." But as the Kethmori ships moved into Earth's orbital space, something unexpected happened. The space around them suddenly filled with invisible energy that made their instruments scream with warning signals. Every ship in the fleet shuddered as their shields flickered and died. Colonel Cho Minji watched from her command center deep beneath the Earth's surface as her electromagnetic pulse network activated perfectly. The satellites she had positioned around Earth months ago were now unleashing waves of energy specifically designed to disable Kethmori technology. "Direct hits on 60% of their vessels," her tactical officer reported, his voice filled with amazement. "Their shields are completely down across the entire formation." The aliens had never faced anything like this. For thousands of years, they had hunted species that had no warning of their approach, no time to prepare defenses, and no knowledge of Kethmori technology. The humans had turned the tables completely. "All units execute Attack Plan Alpha," General Lee Minho commanded. From his flagship, around Earth, hundreds of human vessels that had been hiding behind the planet's moon suddenly appeared, their engines blazing as they accelerated toward the confused Alien fleet. The human ships were not as advanced as the Kethmori vessels, but they had been modified with reverse-engineered alien technology. More importantly, they were coordinated in a way that the aliens had never experienced. While the Kethmori hunters operated as individuals, each trying to claim the best prey for themselves, the humans fought as a unified force. Strike Team 7, execute flanking maneuver, Lee ordered. Strike Team 3, provide covering fire. All units, remember what we learned from the prisoners. These aren't soldiers, they're hunters. They don't know how to fight a real war. Battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Kethmori ships, with their superior weapons and armor, should have easily defeated the human fleet. But the aliens had never learned to fight as a military force. Each ship tried to engage the humans individually, looking for easy targets. In personal glory, the humans, on the other hand, attacked like a pack of wolves. They surrounded individual alien ships, hitting them from multiple directions while other human vessels provided cover fire. When a Kethmori ship tried to retreat, it found itself cut off by more human vessels that had been waiting in ambush. Commander. Veltok watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart by tactics he could not understand. These humans fight like Kethmori, he transmitted to his scattered captains, but they coordinate like a hive mind. How is this possible? The answer was simple, though the aliens could not comprehend it. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters and pack predators. They had learned to coordinate complex strategies across large groups, to support each other in battle, and to think of the group's survival before their own glory. The Kethmori, despite their advanced technology, were essentially solitary hunters who had never learned to work together. As the space battle raged above Earth, some of the alien ships managed to break through the human defenses and enter the planet's atmosphere. Kethmori commanders thought they could salvage the hunt. By landing on the surface and capturing humans the traditional way, they were wrong. The humans had prepared for this possibility. Every major city on Earth had been turned into a fortress, with defensive systems powered by captured alien technology. The moment the Kethmori ships entered the atmosphere, they found themselves under attack from weapons they had never seen before. Park Jinu, who had escaped from the hunting preserve months ago in a stolen Kethmori vessel, now found himself leading human ground forces equipped with alien weapons. He had learned the aliens' weaknesses during his captivity, and he had taught everything he knew to Earth's military forces. They're used to hunting prey that runs away, he explained to his troops as they prepared for battle. But we're not going to run, we're going to hunt them. The Kethmori ground forces landed, expecting to find terrified humans fleeing in panic. Instead, they found organized military units that knew exactly how to fight aliens. The humans had studied their enemies. Biology learned their weaknesses and developed tactics specifically designed to kill Kethmori hunters. The aliens' advanced armor meant nothing when human soldiers knew exactly where to aim their weapons. Their superior technology was useless when humans had learned to jam their communications and disable their equipment. Most importantly, the Kethmori had never learned to fight an enemy that refused to be afraid. They taught us how to hunt them, Park Jinu reported to General Lee, as his forces overwhelmed another group of alien hunters. Now we're going to teach them what real predators look like. The battle for Earth lasted only 6 hours. When it was over, the Kethmori invasion fleet had been completely destroyed. Some ships had been captured intact, along with their crews. Others had been reduced to burning wreckage floating in Earth's orbit. Commander Veltek, bleeding from wounds inflicted by human weapons, found himself in a human prison cell. For the first time in his life, he understood what it felt like to be prey. The humans had not just defeated his fleet, they had turned the hunt around completely. The Kethmori invasion, designed to harvest a helpless species, had become a slaughter. Of the hunters themselves, humanity had proven that they were not prey at all, but predators who had been sleeping until someone made the mistake of threatening them. The Kethmori homeworld was a planet of gleaming towers and vast arenas where the screams of captured prey had echoed for thousands of years. No enemy had ever reached this sacred place, and no Kethmori had ever imagined that their perfect world could be threatened by the very creatures they hunted for sport. General Lee. Minho stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship as the massive human fleet emerged from hyperspace, above the alien capital. 2 years had passed since the failed invasion of Earth. 2 years of careful planning, intelligence gathering, technological development that had transformed humanity from prey to predators. The journey to this moment had cost thousands of human lives, but it had also united Earth's people in a way that nothing else could have. Every nation had contributed ships, weapons, and soldiers to the fleet that now surrounded the Kethmori homeworld like a pack of hunters closing in on their prey. "Their defense fleet is mobilizing," reported Colonel Cho-Minji from her position at the tactical console. "Approximately 300 vessels, but they're maintaining hunting formation rather than military deployment. Even now, facing the destruction of their entire civilization, the Kethmori could not abandon their hunting instincts. They approached the human fleet as if they were stalking prey in their arenas, not fighting a war for survival." Dr. Kim Hannah, who had spent months studying her captors during her imprisonment, watched the alien formations with scientific interest. "They're reverting to basic behaviors," she observed. "Fear is making them fall back on what they know best, which is hunting protocols. They still don't understand that this is a military engagement." The battle that followed was swift and decisive. Human forces, now equipped with fully integrated alien-human hybrid technology, moved with the precision of apex predators who had learned from their enemies and improved upon their techniques. Every lesson from the hunting preserve, every piece of stolen technology, every tactical advantage gained through suffering had been turned into weapons of war. The Kethmori ships, despite their advanced technology, could not match the coordinated assault of the human fleet. While the aliens fought as individuals seeking personal glory, the humans fought as a unified force with a single goal: the complete destruction of the hunting culture that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Park Jinu, now leading a combined force of human survivors and liberated prisoners from other species, struck at the heart of the Kethmori military infrastructure. His ships, crewed by beings who had suffered in the alien arenas, showed no mercy as they overwhelmed the defenders. For every human you hunted, he transmitted as his forces destroyed another Kethmori vessel. For every species you drove to extinction, for every innocent life you took for sport, the space around the Kethmori homeworld became a graveyard of alien ships. The hunters who had once dominated the galaxy found themselves helpless against an enemy that refused to be prey. Within hours, the entire Kethmori defense fleet had been destroyed or captured. The final phase of the battle took place on the planet's surface, where human forces landed near the capital city. The Kethmori Emperor, a massive specimen who had ruled the hunting empire for over a century, watched from his throne room as his perfect world burned around him. General Lee Minho walked into the throne room accompanied by Dr. Hannah and a small group of human soldiers. The Emperor, who had never known defeat, looked at these creatures he had once dismissed as primitive prey and saw something that filled him with terror. "Your hunting culture ends now," Lee announced, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "We'll release all captive species, dismantle your arenas, and transition to a peaceful civilization. Any violation of these terms will result in the complete elimination of your species." The Emperor's compound eyes reflected a new understanding. Humans had not simply defeated his military forces, they had replaced the Kethmori as the galaxy's apex predators. And they were offering something that his species had never offered to others: the chance to survive. "You offer us what we never offered others?" the Emperor rasped through his translator, his voice filled with a mixture of fear and amazement. "Survival?" Dr. Hannah stepped forward, her scientist mind still analyzing the psychology of their former captors. "Evolution isn't about being the strongest or most technologically advanced," she explained. "It's about adaptation. You failed to adapt when you encountered a species that could hunt you back." The truth was simple and devastating. The Kethmori had become so specialized as hunters that they had forgotten how to be anything else. When they encountered prey that fought back, they had no other strategies to fall back on. They had become prisoners of their own success. The Kethmori Empire formally surrendered, marking the end of their reign as galactic predators. The arenas were dismantled, The hunting fleets were destroyed, and the captive species were freed. To return to their homeworlds, humanity established itself as the new protective force in the galaxy, ensuring that no other species would suffer the fate that had been intended for Earth. As the human fleet departed the former Kethmori capital, General Lee reflected on the transformation of his species. They had gone from prey to predator, from hunted to hunter, and ultimately to something new. Protectors of the galaxy's vulnerable civilizations. The hunt was over. Humanity had won not just a war, but the right to determine the future of the galaxy. The age of the Kethmori had ended, and the age of humanity had begun.